humongous bat from the mill. It is to be core spun. So I'm going to spin up an advent calendar that I will be offering closer to Christmas. So I will be doing each of these during the tour. Hey guys, it's Kim here with Fairily Fiber Fun. Thank you for joining me on this Tour de Fleece wrap-up video. If you're new to my channel, welcome, and if you are a returning viewer, welcome back. If you haven't already, please do hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss new videos as they come out. And as always, leave your comments, questions, and suggestions in the comment section below. Okay, I hope that your Tour de Fleece was successful for you. Mine was very successful. If you remember in my plans for Tour de Fleece video, I talked about all the things I had hoped to spin. I had a big basket. I had a bin. Do you know that I finished the two most important goals on my list? One was the 12-day Advent. It was 1 ounce per day. I got all of it spun up. I'm amazed. And that big bin that had a giant bat in it from the mill, I got it all spun. So let's show you what I did and let's break it down by the week, shall we? Week 1, I spun 4 skeins from that bat. All 4 of these got spun in week 1. Not a lot of yardage because they're art yarns. And then I also spun 4 of the Advent colorways. I'm not going to go into details about these because I'm sort of planning on putting them in the shop for a knitting Advent, which was the point. So I ended up with 583 yards of finished yarn. That is the plied up, how much yarn I have to work with total. But if you count all the singles and all the plying, that was 2,042 yards of spinning in week 1, which is really good, okay? Really good. Now, in week 2, I lost motivation and I just wanted to knit. I wanted to knit all the things, so I did a lot of knitting. I finished my shorts. I started a new project and worked on that. I worked a little bit on my summer top I'm designing. I did a lot of knitting, but I didn't do a whole lot of spinning. I did, however, spin up 1 of the Mother's Day bats. I have 2 left, so that goal was not met. I did an unplanned spin because it matched my bobbin. I had to. I just had to. It's such a pretty pink, and actually, they look really good together. And I spun 3 of the Advent colorways. And that was it. That was all I did in the way of spinning. But like I said, I got a lot of knitting done. So I ended up with 387 yards of finished yarn. But if you count the singles and the plying, that's 1,321 yards spun. Notice I didn't have any of that big commission bat in week 2. Yeah, I ran out of plying thread and I kept forgetting to get more. So I couldn't spin it, and I didn't want to. Week 3, I started off feeling blah. I just didn't want to. And then I got some news that motivated me to spin all the things. So I spun up the last 5 Advent colors. These have been washed and everything. And then I plied this yarn that I spun at the beginning of the month before Tour de Fleece started. So I counted the plying yardage only because that's the only part done during the tour. And I spun the rest of the bat. So I've got 3 big skeins and 1 little one. but that's a commission job is completely done. So I have finished my 2 biggest goals. Plus I had a couple of commissions that I managed to get done in week 2, I think. And then, because I was motivated by the news I got, I spun up a whole nother skein, but I plied it the day after Tour de Fleece ended. So I only counted the singles yardage. And this is a chain ply. This is my Fire Element colorway that I've had for years and was going to turn them into bats. Yeah, that didn't happen. I had 2 braids left, so I'm going to spin the other one as well, but that's not part of this vlog. So just counting what was spun during the tour, week 3, I have 904 yards of finished yarn with all the singles, and we're not counting the plying of this one in this total, so it is accurate. I have 2,886 yards of spinning for week 3. That is the biggest week in spinning. It's amazing what you can do when you are thoroughly motivated. Now, what was the news that I got that motivated me to spin? Well, you're just going to have to go watch episode 53 on Friday to learn all about it, because that's where I'm going to tell you about that news. I am still spinning. I am still motivated. In fact, it is not yet 7:30 in the morning, and I'm excited to be here talking to you guys, and I want to get back to spinning. So motivated. So come back for episode 53 on Friday. Let's finish this wrap up really quick. So total yarn to work with, 1,874 yards for the entire tour. That is 6,249 yards spun. Now, how did I get all of these numbers? Well, when I finish a skein, let's use the Advent as an example. I have a 1 yard niddy noddy that I used for these. So I counted the number of wraps around the niddy noddy. I know 1 wrap is a yard, so I counted that. These are chain plied. So how many wraps around the niddy noddy is how many yards of finished yarn I have. But there's 3 singles to make this up. So I had to count the 3 singles plus the plying. That means the finished yardage times 4 gets me my total spun yardage. With these art yarns, I know I'm losing about 40% of the yardage when I ply. So I count this times 2 because I've spun it twice, plus times 0.6, excuse me. So I do it times 2.6. So this is from my 2 yard skein winder. So I count the wraps, multiply it by 2 because that's how many yards each wrap is. And then I multiply that by 2 times 2.6 to get the total yardage spun. Is it 100% accurate? No. But I've done enough experimenting to know I lose about 40% of the yardage when I ply like this. So that's how I got the yardage for that. If you're doing a 2-ply like I did with this, you take your total yardage, finished yarn, and you multiply it by 3. 2 for the singles, 1 for the plying. So that is how I get my totals. I hope that was helpful and informative for you, and I hope it made sense. If you don't know how big your niddy noddy is, you can take a measuring tape, you know, the cloth kind you use for sewing, and just measure around each of the arms in the position that it's in. I don't have one in front of me, so I can't hold it up and demonstrate. Or, and that tells you how long your niddy noddy is. Or you can take your finished skein and you can hold it up to a yardstick. And however long this is, multiply it by 2, and that is your finished length of yarn, each wrap. It's super easy. So there's a few little tips and tricks to figure out how much yardage you have. I hope you enjoyed this quick and fun little Tour de Fleece wrap up vlog, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye guys!